Guys podcast. Justin Goodhart alongside Cameron Klein. And Cameron, it's just another lazy day in October. Oh my God, October. Jeez, I wish it was October right now. No, it's August. It's another lazy summer day in August. And let me tell you something, Cameron. The sports stories, they trickle in slow right now. Even in baseball, not a ton is happening. Aaron Judge hit his 300th home run, but who cares? We don't like the Yankees on this podcast. And more importantly, I don't care about Aaron Judge.
Right.
I tried to look for some stories heading into today. I want to entertain you, the fans, obviously. The fans of the show who have listened so loyally, and I'm pretty sure have only the highest of opinions of Cameron and I, sports opinions. More so Cameron, certainly, than you do of mine. But on the Miami Dolphins front, couldn't find much. The only thing that I found out is that the fans of Miami seem to be saying that Odell Beckham Jr. is pulling a Will Fuller, which I thought was kind of funny, comparing him to Will Fuller.
Yeah. Who would have thought the guy who has done this exact thing for the past, 4 teams that he's been on is doing it here too? It's almost why, most teams haven't signed him to long-term contracts and why teams don't want to sign him and why it's kind of just a PR move at this point, signing Odell Beckham Jr. Didn't care for the move when they made it. Didn't care for the rumors when it first came out that they were trying to do it. And this is exactly why. And color me shocked that the prima donna receiver is once again a prima donna receiver. And I don't even know if he is, because honestly, the probability of it is that they were fully aware, the Dolphins were fully aware this was going to happen. They were just going to be like, hey, we're going to sign this contract. We hope you play this amount of games for this many snaps, probably closer toward the end of the season if we get into the playoffs. So that's I kind of think this was premeditated. I don't understand why people are even annoyed by it. It's like, yeah, this is what he does, man. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, it's kind of interesting because Odell Beckham clapped back at a fan that had called him the next Will Fuller, and even the article that is, talking about it is like, listen, Beckham doesn't want to be hurt and everything. Like, he wants to be a part of the team. I don't know why everyone's giving him such a hard time. And it's, I think Cameron, you might have the more intelligent view of it as it is simply, it's not the idea of Odell Beckham being on the Dolphins that is the most enraging aspect. Yeah. It's the aspect that the Dolphins have cut off all of this wonderful meat that was on their team, and instead they're just like, oh, well, the Tyreek, Hill and Jalen Waddle thing seems to be working out, so why don't we just triple down on that with another wide receiver that isn't going to help us with the bottom line of winning a Super Bowl?
Yeah, Connor Williams, he wants to play center? No, we're not going to. We'd rather him be at guard. Rather have Liam Eichenberg at center again. We'd rather not pay the offensive lineman who wants to be a center. The one thing that we probably need on offensive line more than anything else, and instead we're gonna sign Odell Beckham Jr. to not play and to sell jerseys, maybe. Once again, I've said it before. Signing him was the most Dolphins thing they could have possibly done, and this is the most Dolphins scenario that could have possibly came out of signing him. So I'm not surprised at all.
One thing that we didn't actually get into, July 26th was the day that the Miami Dolphins have hedged their bets, their future on Tua Tagovailoa with a 4-year, $212 million contract.
Yep.
What was your view of, as a Dolphins fan, and what do you think the average Dolphins fan thinks of that deal?
I think the average Dolphins fan's happy. I'm happy. It's one of those things where it's like, is he slightly overpaid? Maybe he might be, because he has only had one full season that he's played very well during that full season. And the other times when he had his shortened seasons, he played well during those short seasons as well. But at the same time, his health is still a concern slightly. He hasn't been as clutch in moments as a lot of people want him to be, especially on a super high-powered offense that the Dolphins have. So I do understand that some people might think that's a little bit of an overpayment, but quarterback is the premium position in the NFL. And if you have a guy who is averaged about, last season had a 70% completion percentage for over 4,000 yards, you want to keep that guy. It's the way of the future. The games are won in the air now. It's not like how it used to be. It's not all defense and running backs as much as I want it to be, because that's the old school football I grew up with.
Yep.
It's all about the quarterback. And if I have to overpay for a damn good quarterback, that's what I'm going to do. I think he's getting elite money, and maybe he might not have shown he's elite. He still has the potential to be elite. But it's not my money, so I don't care. You need a quarterback, and you need to build around a quarterback. And if you need to overpay for that guy, overpay for that guy. It is what it is. That dude has had multiple coaching staffs. He had one coaching staff specifically working against him, and he's proved time and time again. Every doubt. First, it was Tyreek Hill can't get the ball, right? He's not going to be able to get it to him. Well, then he got it to him.
Yep.
Then it was, well, the coaching staff doesn't like him. It's never going to work. They wanted Mac Jones instead. And then he still pushed on and persevered there. And then last year, it was, well, he's not going to be able to be healthy the whole season. He's not going to play a full season. And then he did that too. So while also being an MVP frontrunner for a good 9 weeks, I would say probably top 3 in that conversation. So, yeah, they got their guy. They got the best quarterback we've had since Dan Marino. They signed him long term. If he continues to improve, the ceiling is non-existent for him. He could be an elite quarterback if he continues to improve on what we've seen already. So I love it. Glad they have him. I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he works out for the whole contract term length. So,
it's funny. You mentioned, the knock on Tua is that he's not clutch, and he doesn't win the really important games. A couple of things I want to point out about him.
Josh Allen. What, sorry, something in my throat there.
That Josh Allen phlegm, man, it can get to you just at a moment's notice.
Aaron Rodgers sometimes.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers pretty much since 2010.
If it's not the Cowboys,
yeah, like
it's just not a guaranteed fourth quarter comeback. You know what I mean? It's not a guaranteed fourth quarter comeback. It's it's only with the Cowboys it's guaranteed.
Couple of things. Tua Tagovailoa has a 22-6 home record right now and a 12-13 road record. So obviously something that you want to see him improve at is being able to play outside of Miami and in more hostile situations. He is 14-10 when the final score is determined by a touchdown or less. He has six fourth quarter comebacks and 8 game-winning drives throughout his career. He can win you a football game. He is more than capable. In fact, arguably his greatest victory as a quarterback was that incredible comeback against the Baltimore Ravens just a couple years ago when the team was down by 21 points and then every single Raven died in the secondary and it became kind of like, open season on shooting for the Dolphins in that game. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in this case because Tua is someone that, as you said, the knock is he can't even get the ball to Tyreek Hill. He can get the ball to Tyreek Hill. Oh, he can't stay healthy. He now has a full season of being healthy underneath his belt. He's too inaccurate. He has around about a 66 completion percentage in his career, something along those lines. So, he can throw accurately. He can throw the ball down the field. He can orchestrate a good offense. The Miami Dolphins have run into parts of the season where when the tough gets going, they unfortunately do not get going tough. Yeah. And so that's going to be a big thing. And my concern for the Dolphins is they looked at their team and they thought, okay, the gritty, more bruising parts of this team, throw them to the recycling bin. Let's get more flash and trash. And that's what I think a lot of Dolphins fans are specifically worried about when it comes to the acquisition of a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., who is he's just a name to have on a team. I mean, this isn't a guy that ever... Yes, he has a Super Bowl. He's not the reason why the Rams won that Super Bowl. No one would ever confuse him as a reason why the Rams won that Super Bowl. He got hurt in the game when they were losing, and they still found a way to win the game. So,
I mean, it was Matt Stafford. It's Sean McVay. It's Odell played his role on that team, but that's all he did was play his role. You don't need that when you have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson still. You signed Jonnu Smith as a tight end, who's now going to be with who was starting, Durham Smythe, who's now in number 2. Mm-hmm. You got a guy you drafted 2 years ago, Eric Izukazama. Like, you don't need him. You don't need him. Is as simple as it is. You need a guy like Christian Wilkins is what you need, but I'm not that, whatever. Now, back to Tua before we get off of him. The only thing I want to see him really improve on is his improvisation. It's the only thing that I think that he really struggles with. Everyone talks about his greatest strength, which is his accuracy and his anticipation. If the route is run correctly, it will be pinpoint accurate exactly where it needs to be when it needs to be there. But if there is something goes wrong, you have a Chase Claypool who doesn't run his route, or let's say your receiver gets jammed up at the line. Tyreek Hill is a smaller guy. It happens every once in a while. Then that kind of goes out the window a little bit, and that's when you see those mistakes being made. And every once in a while, you see him throw these picks where it's just like, dude, what were you throwing at? And I think the reason is because route got broken down, play got broken down. He threw where the ball was supposed to be, but that's not where the player was. That's what I want to see him improve on. If you can improve on that, then you got a great big thing. But like you said, Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to help with that.
No,
Connor Williams will, in my opinion. But whatever. He's in
I
Seattle
wouldn't
now,
think so. All right, and so you know what? Actually, you know what? While we're talking about football, because football season's basically here. Eagles are playing the Patriots tonight. Let's keep it in the AFC East, and let's talk about those New England Patriots. Cameron,
yeah.
our live on the scene correspondent, he happened to be around for the Eagles and Patriots live joint practice a couple days ago. Cameron, you were giving me some play-by-play updates. From what you were able to see, and I know it maybe wasn't a ton, but from what you were able to see, talk about what you noticed from the Patriots and the Eagles practices. What stood out to you?
Dude, I love playing the NFL reporter role today. This is great.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
This is your show.
My Ian Rappaport moment. You know what I mean? But no, so the New England Patriots have been struggling a lot. No, they have been. They struggled heavily yesterday. And I remember you were saying you were concerned about the Eagles because you watched a couple of their practices and you were like, well, they're just kind of destroying the defense. And I'm wondering if it means that our offense is as good as it is, or maybe our defense is questionable, which makes me nervous. I don't think your defense is necessarily bad because they got to the Patriots yesterday. I don't know if you saw the report.
A lot of sacks. A lot of sacks is what I saw, yeah.
A lot of them. Yeah, very frustrating day for the New England Patriots. The offensive line, which is the biggest concern for that team going into the season, remains the biggest concern for good reason, especially when you have a rookie quarterback. And it's a big reason why a lot of people don't think Drake May is going to see a whole lot of the field this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I wouldn't play him, except for maybe garbage time games when you're already down by 20 points and there's only one drive left. You can throw him out there to get some game time experience. I would not throw him out to the Wolves because the guy's just going to get killed. He's already a quarterback who you need to develop. That offensive line's not going to help anything. But the Eagles, that offense looks, and again, it's against a weak New England defense, but that offense looks tip-top. From what I saw out of the red zone drills, and I was only there for a short time, 2 for 3 from what I saw. A lot of pre-snap motion coming from the Eagles, which we did not see before, specifically from Devontae Smith.
We love to see that as well.
It's fantastic. It's very fluid. The word that popped in my mind watching the Eagles offense was fluid. It was constantly moving. Now, granted, you complained last time a little bit about how you hate seeing Hurts run in practice. He did run a lot. That's kind of the thing. I did notice that the offensive line didn't hold up as well as I would have liked it to. It seemed like as soon as the ball was snapped, it was within about 2 seconds that Hurts would have to be moving. And that was kind of the one thing I didn't love seeing was that he wasn't going through reads a whole lot. It was really quickly one read and then go, which we are used to seeing from Jalen Hurts because he can do that. And the other thing, too, is I think possibly the idea is that offense is going to be very fast-paced. So the idea is if it's not there, your first option, just move. And I think what helps them is they have so many weapons because Devontae Smith moves from the right to the left, but then Saquon, you do a fake handoff to Saquon who goes to the right. There's all these things that have to be accounted for. And so if you see a hole, take it because you're probably going to get 15 yards because the defense is so spread out. So, again, it's the Patriots. I as a Dolphins fan, I do enjoy saying it, but the facts are the facts. They are in shambles, man. They are in shambles. It does not look good. I don't think Gerard Mayo has complete control of the team. I think a lot of the players who were there before, who were under Belichick, this is all my own personal theory, by the way. This is nothing. I'm not getting any reports. I just want to jump out and say that because we had that whole journalistic integrity episode the other day. These are nothing reports. This is all my personal opinion. But my personal opinion is that he does not have full control of the team. My idea is that Bill Belichick was there before, arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time, arguably the greatest defensive coach of all time. I would say not even arguably on the defense side. And you got a brand new head coach coming in. A lot of things are changing. And I think a lot of players could be kind of getting away with some things that they were not before. And I think some veterans on the team are kind of frustrated seeing that. Hence why I think the Matt Judon trade happened.
Yeah.
All my personal opinion. Nothing, have no insider information giving me this, anything like that, but just my personal opinion from what I've seen. It's not good in New England. It's not good. And I hate to admit it, but I remember I texted my father yesterday after the Matthew Judon trade and my wife saying, I'm so happy that I'm living here during the downfall of the New England Patriot dynasty. As
These fans
bitter as a
deserve
fan
it.
that makes me, it just, oh my goodness. And it's so funny because there was some conversation about Gerard Mayo being possibly the coach of the year if they could win 9 games, to one day later saying, I don't see them winning 2 games. Just that quick. Yeah.
I do
Shambles.
think the Patriots are a contender this year for being, at minimum, the worst team in the AFC. I don't think that's a crazy statement to go out there and say.
I mean,
try,
like who else could be? You know what I mean? Like when you really break it down, who else could be?
Let's see. Well, when you run through the AFC East, Dolphins, no. Bills, no. Jets, probably not. Patriots, maybe. AFC North, Browns, maybe not. Steelers, maybe, probably not, because the Steelers always find a way to break even.
Yep.
Ravens are supposed to be a contender, and the Bengals, if all goes well for them with Burrow, then they're a contender as well.
Yes.
In the West, Chargers, no. Raiders, probably not, but maybe. You never know with them.
Because you don't know the quarterback situation. Same with Denver.
They've got an Aiden O'Connell situation. Denver could be very bad this year. And then the Chargers, who all things considered should be a good team. I hear all the time that Justin Herbert's one of the best throwers of a football out there. Doesn't win any games that matter, but whatever. And then the AFC South, Texans are supposed to be a contender. Yeah. Jaguars are like a sneaky team, in my opinion, for being one of the worst. No, I think I'm going the other way.
Oh, you think they're going to be one of the worst teams?
I think they could be one of the worst teams. I think Doug will lose his job this year.
It's funny because I think it's one or the other. It's one or the other.
I don't think it'll be a mediocre season. They're either going to break out or they're going to fall apart.
Yeah.
Colts, I just don't like Anthony Richardson at all, so I don't think they're going to be a very good team.
He's fun if he can not backflip himself into a concussion 4 weeks into the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great if he could stay healthy. He is a fun quarterback in the same way that like Michael Vick was so fun. But I mean, those Falcons teams were never going to win the frickin' NFC. Yeah. Not when you had to deal with like the Eagles, the Packers, the Vikings at that point in time. Yeah. And then the other team, the Titans. Titans are probably going to suck as well this year.
I would say I think it's the Titans, Patriots, or Broncos would be my 3.
I think those are my top
selections.
3 or my bottom 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably think the Patriots might be worse. Now, this is not to say that Gerard Mayo cannot be a coach in the NFL.
Right.
I think though that a year after, like, what's a good way of putting it? So when the when the wall was finally torn down, when Mr. Gorbachev finally tore down that wall, Germany's reunification of East and West Side, it wasn't exactly like it wasn't a smooth transition. I mean, yeah, sure. The last time they've been unified was obviously one of the worst times in human history. But it didn't come together so quickly. It takes a little bit of time to get a full-blown government, reestablished and moving forward. So I think it's more likely that Gerard Mayo goes through a ton of growing pains this year. Yep. We'll see if Robert Kraft has the patience to stick it out with a young coach and a young quarterback. He should. I think he should, but, we'll see. And as far as AFC East teams go, I think we can both agree that the Patriots will probably finish in last place outside of a catastrophic injury. Like, let's just say like a team let's just say a team in a huge metropolitan city lost their controversial starting quarterback. I'm just making that. We'll call them the Jets, just to, just name. And speaking of those Jets, yes, the Jets are another team in the AFC East that we need to talk about because the Jets lost their quarterback last season.
Yeah,
which was devastating for them, and it crushed their chances of a hopeful year. This year, things are different. Aaron Rodgers is back, and he's taking names and punching vaccinated kids right in the face left and right. He's got no interest in hearing about this whole, I'm 40, I'm on the wrong side of 40, always me. The Jets, though, did have a bit of an offseason. Interesting move. They traded for Philadelphia Eagles star defensive end Hassan Reddick.
Yes.
Joey Douglas used to work for the Eagles. He knows how he's a good evaluator of talent. He's going to hook me up with a guy. Problem is that Hassan Reddick wanted a new contract, which the Eagles were like, no, we're not going to give that to you. And then they trade him. He gets to the Jets. Obviously, the Jets thought that they could lure him into Saramon's trance and, convince him that he doesn't. It was like, these are not the droids you're looking for. I think that's what they were hoping that was going to happen with Hassan Reddick. It didn't, and now Hassan Reddick has requested a trade away from the New York Jets. So, Cameron, as a lifelong New York Jets fan, which we all know you are, what does it mean to you, Mr. Jets, Jets, when you see yet another star player situation with the Jets, another front office debacle with the Jets? What does this mean to you with the situation that they're in?
Business as usual. Jets are going to jet. Jets are going to jet. And, okay, in their defense, Hassan Reddick did get the physical, right? Which, if he wanted to really, really pull leverage his way, probably shouldn't have got the physical before, then you could request the new contract and yada, yada, yada. That being said, with the Jets, if you were not aware that he wanted a new contract, which the guy who I'm talking to right now as a fan was aware that he needed a new contract. If you were not aware of that, that's on you, brother. I don't know what to tell you. You knew he wanted a new contract. And if they didn't know that he wanted a new contract, that's even worse. That's even worse. Because that means you just weren't paying attention or how he just fleeced you, which he's done it before. So it totally could have been that. But it's just so stereotypical, Jet. I'm sorry. Like I can't even say anything mean. I can't even rant. Like I can't. Because it's just like, what? It's typical. Montreal typical. You didn't do your research before getting a guy? Huh. Okay.
The thing is that when I look at the Jets coming into this season, they're obviously a team that a lot of people are like, they could be a really good team. They have a quarterback that's not a borderline. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
He can't win in the playoffs, since 2010. But just real quick,
the Cowboys.
Real quick. Let's just go through this real quick.
Yeah.
2011 loses as a 15-1 team to the 9-7 New York Giants. Right? Okay, that's bad enough. 2012, does anyone remember what team he loses? He loses that incredible shootout with Colin Kaepernick and the San Francisco 49ers. Yep. 2013, he's like, well, you know what? If one time wasn't good enough, let's lose to the 49ers a second time. I understand that some of these losses aren't his fault for any Packers Packers fans that do this. 2014 is not his fault at all. One might say. Brandon Bostic trying to go up and catch an onside kick against the Seattle Seahawks doesn't go his way. Seahawks come back and win the game. But you know what? There was still opportunities to win the game. Didn't have to be 19-0 at one point in that game. 2015, who did they play in 20? Oh, did they even go to the play? Oh yeah, 2015. They lose to the Arizona Cardinals. I get it. Not his fault. He has the Hail Mary at the end. It's like, how can you blame him for that? That's not on him. 2016. I mean, the defense completely falls apart against the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC Championship game. Again, I'm not going to necessarily blame him for that. 2017 is a lost year, obviously, because the Packers did not make the playoffs, as we all know. 2018, again, a bit of a lost year for the Green Bay Packers because, things kind of fell apart for them. Yep. But 2019, that was as good of a Packers team as you were going to find. They get stomped. And I mean absolutely stomped by the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC title game. 2020, he's playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC title game. And Tom Brady throws an uncharacteristic 3, which should have been 5, but 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
And guess what? He loses that game too. He loses that one. And then 2021, the game that I swear to God, I still don't understand what happened in this game. At home, best record in the NFC, 49ers. And it's Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not like this is Brock Purdy time yet.
Right.
Just take care of business.
Yeah.
Win the game. First touchdown drive to Devontae Adams. You're like, okay, Packers got this good. What are we even worried about?
Right.
Nope. Chokes. In my opinion, that 2021 loss to the 49ers in the playoffs is, without question, the worst loss of Aaron Rodgers' career because it was the one, in my opinion, he was the most responsible for. I don't want to get too far into this because I do want to talk a little bit more about the Jets. But essentially, this idea that Aaron Rodgers comes through in the clutch, it is true. He does come through in the clutch plenty, especially, as Cameron said, if your name happens to be the Dallas Cowboys. In the playoffs, though, a lot of things have gone wrong for him and a lot of self-inflicted gun bullet wounds. I'm just saying, my quarterback went to the Super Bowl. Both of my most recent two quarterbacks went to a Super Bowl, technically, in their second year of being a pro. If you had told me that Jalen Hurts would reach a Super Bowl as many times as Aaron Rodgers, I would have said you're crazy because there's no way that's possible. If you had told me that Nick Foles and Aaron Rodgers would have the same amount of Super Bowl championships, I would have been like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and MVPs.
Super Bowl MVPs, that's true.
Yeah, which is pretty wild. But I mean, hey,
a Super Bowl MVP is not as valuable as like a regular NFL MVP.
No, but still, the fact that Nick still has one is pretty the same amount of as Rodgers does is pretty crazy. But I'm a fan of Rodgers as a quarterback, but everything you said is true. It's all facts.
I thought he was the greatest quarterback of all time at one point. I genuinely believed it.
For me, it was that Tampa Bay game against Brady that really at that point I just kind of was like,
I was so annoyed.
The debate is over. The debate is, as angry as that makes me, the debate is over. It was like, dude, you had every opportunity. Like you say, through 3 picks, it's your game to have, and you blew it. It was a great defense. Don't get me wrong, but it's like that's where you need to rise above that, buddy, and you didn't. But we're not here to talk. But back to Hassan.
Back to the Jets. So that Jets team, obviously they've got their own little bit of turmoil. All things considered, this should be a 10 to 11 win team this season. All things considered, if everything breaks right. But I remember you and I having this exact conversation about a year ago when getting ready for the season, going, if everything breaks right. And then you looked at me, you go, really? If everything breaks right? Yeah, sure.
Tell me that's not the most Jet mindset if everything breaks right. When in the NFL does everything break right? Rarely ever. 2017 Eagles, maybe. You know what I mean?
Even though we still lost
quarterback.
He went down. Like we lost our star quarterback, and somehow we just lucked into an insanity run by Nick Foles.
From week 15, right to the Super Bowl was everything going right, possibly that you could have. That is so insanely rare, and that's not even a full season. That's just like 6 weeks worth of football.
No,
it's not going to happen, right? Rodgers is 41 years old. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. He could stay healthy all year, and him staying healthy might be enough to win them those 10, 11 games because their team is talented enough. Breece Hall, they have the weapons. They have a great defense, an absolutely phenomenal defense. But that, to me, is why, if you have the money, give it to Hassan Reddick. I understand he might not be worth what he's asking for. He's not going to be worth maybe Myles Garrett or TJ Watt money. But you got a quarterback who's 41 years old or going to be 41 years old, who's coming off a torn Achilles. Your window is extremely small. And if you want to win now, which you clearly do, because why else would you trade for a 40-year-old quarterback unless to win right now? And also all of his old teammates, as if we're playing old school here and just reestablishing the frat. If you're going to do all that, you want to win now. So pay the edge rusher what he wants to get. I mentioned earlier about Tua. Quarterback is the bell of the ball. You know what the number 2 highest paid position is?
Defensive
edge rusher. Mm-hmm. Give him the money. It will push your defense, push it right over the edge. It will give you that extra little, and I can't believe I'm giving the Jets advice and trying to tell them, help them at all. But you know what? They're not going to listen because they're the Jets.
They never do. They just never do. I mean, because they what's their motivation to listen? They're going to get money no matter what. Last team in the AFC East before we go to break.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills. Weird year coming up for them. No Stephon Diggs anymore. They traded him, and so they're telling Josh Allen, like, well, go be the quarterback that we think that you are, which, I mean, as we all know, Josh Allen, very good performer, unless the team in front of him happens to be called the Kansas City Chiefs. Suddenly, he turns into a bit of a pumpkin. They lost Matt Milano today, Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
Torn biceps, and he'll be out until potentially December.
Yeah.
That's not a small loss. That is a gigantic team captain type loss that can often be the difference between having a top 15, top 10 defense and having a bottom 20 defense. I don't know. It felt like last year was the year, dude. Like, they got on that really hot run at the end of the year. It felt like everything was riding high going into that game with Kansas City, that they were going to be able to get it done. It didn't happen. I just don't know how many more times I'm going to convince myself that the Bills are going to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned how with the Jets, we were talking about them about a year ago. Same thing with the Bills, and we were saying back then, like, your window is closing, man. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
It is.
As long as you have Josh Allen, you do have. It's never going to be fully closed. I do think, as much as we make fun of him for not being clutch, he is like a modern day Brett Favre, and that's one of the things I like about him. He's a gunslinger. He's going to throw it, whether it's triple coverage, wide open. He's gonna trust himself in his receiver, and I do respect that on a certain level. They scare me the most. They scare me more than the Jets. I think everyone's kind of. Say it again.
It's understandable. I mean, the Bills have been the biggest thorn in the Dolphins' side for a couple of years now.
And they have that coaching staff that's been there for a while. They have the culture established, and it's one of those things where Tom Brady had Randy Moss, never won a Super Bowl with him, but he won multiple with guys like Wes Welker, who's a great receiver, but not on that level, right? Julian Edelman, great receiver, not on that level. Losing guys like Stephon Diggs, I don't think it's going to be as much of a pain for them. Matt Milano's that's a big loss.
Yeah.
He's a real difference maker on the defense, and that sucks for them. But at the same time, I think if the Jets jet like they normally do, I think it's going to be a battle between Miami and Buffalo again, and I think it's going to be right down to the wire like it normally is. A lot of people are just calling the Bills. They're kind of throwing them to the wayside. I would not do that. Very, very sneaky, scary in my opinion.
Do you like your AFC East talk on a Flyers type podcast? Well, don't worry, we do have some Flyers talk for you when we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Matvei Michkov hitting the ice with Igor Zamula, as well as some little talking points, some things that I want to kind of mention with Cameron, things to expect as we're still about a month away from training camp and even a little bit further away from preseason. But don't worry, as much as you loved your talk about the New York Jets, we'll talk coming up next about the Philadelphia Flyers. All right, so enough football talk. I mean, that was like 30 minutes of football talk. Jeez,
it always goes off the rails. Yeah,
always. That's
moving on.
That's the nickname of this show, Off the Rails podcast, which I'm sure is a real show that probably exists out there.
Yeah, probably.
But so Flyers, obviously things have slowed down. We talked about this last week, how things have now kind of slowed down. We got Michkov here. The draft's over, free agency period's pretty much over, and so now we're just in the waiting period of now it's time to just see what this team's going to be. Thomas Williams, a fine writer for Broad Street Hockey, wrote about how Matvei Michkov is hitting the ice for the first time in Philadelphia. He did so on Wednesday afternoon with Igor Zamula. They had a nice little summer training session, and it's really nothing much. It's nothing. I mean, Tom even says it's nothing, but it's just nice because there he is with the Flyers emblem in the middle of his sweater. There it is, Michkov on the ice as a Philadelphia Flyer. But it makes me think about something, Cameron.
Yeah.
It makes me think about, I think we need to really set expectations. And I want to set them early with this Flyers team. Not player by player. That's a different episode for about a month from now. Stay tuned on that one. We've talked about so much. If the team had this, they're a playoff team. If they don't go through that insane slump in late March and April, it's a playoff team. We all know that. Anyone that's listening knows that. But does Michkov single-handedly turn the Flyers from just barely on the outside to now over the hump to get them into the playoffs? Is his presence alone enough?
I'd say theoretically, yeah. Right? Because if they were right there last year, let's say they at the worst remain at that level of productivity.
Yep.
Now you bring in a Russian goal scorer who, let's say, even if I'm not asking a whole lot. What was the numbers? It was a while ago, about a couple weeks ago. You texted me and you were like, "Hey, if Matvei Michkov ends the season with this number,"
I think I had 17 goals. 40 assists, and I think I had a plus minus of -6 or something like that. Would you be happy with that?
Like, to me, you add that to last year's team on top of what they already had. A more solid defense with an Eric Johnson leading the way as a veteran, guys who are taking a better step. Jamie Drysdale plays a full season because he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
A better goalie tandem where you can actually switch back and forth between two guys and not have one guy just jump in the season and play 50 games because he has to. You add all those things together, theoretically, yeah, right? Like, why not? They were one spot out. It came down to the last game of the season last year. You add that guy with his productivity onto what they already have, minus the health concerns, and yeah, I mean, to me, that's a wild card 2 team at the minimum, right?
So, a couple of things. There's outliers with this Flyers team from last year that I think we should all be vaguely aware of. First and foremost, the power play was 12.2%, which was extremely bad. And your thought is that there is no flipping way it could be worse next year. And
I think that's the main reason why they drafted Luchenko.
I think they needed a center badly. They needed a center like they needed air, and
he
was
a big special teams player where he came from. So I think he was another motivating factor.
I mean, guys, how many times do you remember offensive zone draw, power play, and they freaking lose the faceoff? It happened during that Islanders game I went to with my brother Grant. I mean, every time they needed to win a faceoff, you guaranteed that they were not winning that faceoff.
Yeah.
So that's outlier number one. You figure someone like Michkov, he should help with that because he's so skilled with the puck that getting him in open space, you just have to know that he's going to do something with the puck.
Yeah.
Outlier number two. This team had 25 shorthanded goals last year. They were by far and away one of the best teams when it came to the prowl on the shorthanded side for at least 3/4 of the season.
Yep.
Things kind of fell apart with the power penalty kill rather at the end of the year. But can we expect 25 shorthanded goals next year? I mean, they have guys that'll get out on the break. They still have Scott Lawton. They still have Travis Konechny, who, by the way, I'm sorry, you know what? That's goal. Oh, my bad. 16 shorthand goals last year. My bad. I was looking at assists. So there were 25. Fun for a trivia question for all you guys out there. I thought that looked weird to me. I'm like, there's no way Travis Konechny only had one shorthanded goal. So fun trivia question. How many primary assists go on a penalty kill from last year? The answer is 25. Travis Konechny had 6 shorthanded goals last year. Scott Lawton had 2. Ryan Poehling had 3. Those 3 guys are obviously still with the team. Ryan Poehling was a guy that we kind of got excited about. I actually personally really like Ryan Poehling.
Yeah, very fast.
As a fourth wing guy. They still have Garner Hathaway, who's good at, being, just gritty and just, very tenacious on the ice. 16 shorthanded goals, less than 25 that I just mentioned, but still a very high number and was leading the NHL for quite some time. Can we expect that next year? I think it's very hard to expect your penalty kill to be as opportunistic as last year's team was, which was why it was so frustrating how when they didn't make the playoffs, it's like, you have like this really special penalty kill, like in the playoffs, when you have a good penalty kill, man, that really makes a big difference. Whatever. There's outlier number 2. And then outlier number 3. And I don't know if this is necessarily an outlier. I don't know if we want to call this something to watch. Travis Konechny had 33 goals last year. Owen Tippett had 28 goals last year.
Yeah.
We're paying these guys to be big-time goal scorers. Consistently, Travis Konechny has done 30 goals over the last 2 years, and you're hoping that at age 27, he'll be able to put the puck in the net at least 30 times a season for a couple more years. Owen Tippett, you are counting on to become that because we know what kind of great power forward he can be. But the other outlier is just like the lack of team scoring. Was last year an indication that they truly don't have enough guys that can light the lamp, or is it still too soon to be writing these guys off? Case in point, how many goals, Cameron, based on what everyone was saying last year, how many goals do you think Joel Farabee finished with last year?
I'm going to say 20, 21.
You're very close. He finished with 22 goals.
Right.
There were 4 Flyers players with 20 goals or more, but it didn't feel like that, did it? Right. It felt like that the team had only one goal scorer, and if he was off for a stretch, and I'm talking about Konechny, then the whole team was effed. But you'd forget, Tyson Forrester had 20 goals in his rookie season.
Yes, he did.
Joel Farabee had 22 goals. Owen Tippett had 28 goals. Konechny with 33. And then it drops off. Scott Lawton, Morgan Frost, Cam Atkinson, each with 13. Lawton's still here. Frost is still here. And we hope that Frost, we're begging for Frost to be something. Cam Atkinson's gone. Ryan Poehling, 11 goals. Sean Couturier, the worst season of his career. At 11 goals, 27 assists. And though you might say, that's about the numbers he was putting up in 2013 and 2014, not like this. It wasn't exactly the same.
He was also the nastiest of nasty penalty killers in those seasons as well, whereas this year he was a liability. I hate to admit it, but he was.
Yeah, Bobby Brink had 11 goals, but he was he was a +1. Bobby Brink actually kind of carved out like a decent end to his season that not a lot of people talk about.
He's one of the guys who I do expect, like what you said, Morgan Frost, you hope, right, takes that next step up. Bobby Brink, I expect to. I will be disappointed if Bobby Brink doesn't. I will be disappointed if Morgan Frost doesn't either, but it's one of those things where it's like, I won't be shocked. I want him to, but I won't be shocked. But Bobby Brink I'm looking at you and I'm thinking 11, if it's not 15 minimum next year, buddy, what are you doing? I need you to step it up.
And then when we talk about defense, okay, so Cam York, honest to God, I feel bad for Cam York. His -13 is so non-indicative of the kind of player that he was last year. Cam York was good. I mean, I will go to my grave saying Cam York was good in 2023, 2024. His partner, however, in Travis Sanheim, started out great, and then it wasn't so great. Travis Sanheim led all defensemen in points with 44 points, 10 goals, 34 assists. But we all know that Travis Sanheim at times looks like a pylon out there that guys could just easily skate around.
Just peaks and valleys for that man.
So this isn't necessarily an outlier, but it does bring up the very important question, what needs to change from the defensive side? Well, we need Jamie Drysdale to stay healthy. Can Jamie Drysdale stay healthy? That's a big question right there. Remember, Jamie Drysdale, throughout the rest of his time as a Philadelphia Flyer, will always be attached to that trade where Cutter Gauthier was let go. The Flyers traded Cutter. Remember that? Remember that whole thing? I don't know if you guys remember all that. But ultimately, how this defense performs in front of whoever the starting goaltender is, Sam Urson, Alexei Kosalov, or oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank on the other guy's name? Ivan Fedotov. How these guys play in front is going to be so key. And so with all that I've just told you, no, Matthew Michkov does not single-handedly make or break a difference in this team's ability to make the playoffs. What Matthew Michkov does is that it puts a bona fide, skilled playmaker along this with the likes of a Morgan Frost. And you hope that Morgan Frost or Scott Lawton or whoever the center is that Michkov is put with, you're hoping that their game will be elevated by such a crafty and skilled young man's presence.
There's without him, there are guys who are going to make those steps anyway. Bobby Brink.
Yep. You hope.
I hope Morgan Frost, Cam York, I expect. Ryan Poehling, I expect. They're all young guys. That's what's so exciting about this. And like you said, toward the end of the season last year, a couple of those guys were really starting to make really, really big strides. I just feel very optimistic.
I think optimism is all we have right now because things have gone. Listen, the Flyers, all things considered, Flyers had a good offseason. Like, I mean, we had some things go our way that I did not think was going to go our way. They had a relatively good draft. They got the prize of prizes in Michkov. And they honestly, like, you're telling me you look at that Flyers goaltending room and Urson, Fedotov, and Koslov, you're telling me you're not a little excited about what they got? Like, there's some guys in there that are good. I mean, it kind of makes you forget about the goalie that isn't going to be here ever again because of the insanely horrendous charges that are brought up against him. They do have a guy coming back next year in Rasmus Ristolainen, and I know before anyone starts, I know you might say I'm not the biggest Risto believer. But Rasmus Ristolainen was actually playing fairly well at the time of his injury.
He was, and the year before was probably his best season as a Flyer.
So
could be his best season of his career, really.
I'm gonna be optimistic for a moment and say, like, you put Risto with a guy like, I don't know, maybe you put him with Drysdale, and maybe that's a good pairing. Adam Ginning, I liked Adam Ginning last year. I thought he was actually pretty fun to watch. I was annoyed when they kept taking him out of the lineup. Ronnie Adder, less so, but I didn't necessarily dislike him that much. So the Flyers, like, they have like plenty of young talent, and if you go on to Broad Street Hockey, and speaking of Tom Williams, he puts out the top 25 under 25 list, and this is something that all of Broad Street Hockey tries to be involved with, and what I would say is that he talks about at number 19, he talks about Adam Ginning and how there's a good chance that maybe we'll see more of Ginning this year. I think that this team should be a playoff team, but we all know there's so much that has to break right for them. We know that the special teams for the power play has got to get better. And if you think that that's an overblown statistic, find me an abysmally bad power play that won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
You need to score when you have the man advantage.
Yeah.
Equally as important to stop the other team when they have a man advantage, which the Flyers had a good power penalty kill for a long time. We called it the power kill. And then at the end of the year, it fell apart. So many things fell apart at the end of the year. The other thing that needs to happen right for this team, Cameron, they've got to find a way to start competing with some of these good teams. I cannot continue to watch them beat up on a team like, I don't know, the Blue Jackets, for example. But then, you go and you play a team like, I don't know, the Ottawa Senators, who aren't good, by the way. The Senators suck, and they lose the game 5-1.
Yeah,
or they fall apart against a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, or they fall apart against a team like the Boston Bruins, which is actually really crazy because the Flyers played so well against good teams last year that it felt like, oh god, they're going to eventually get stomped by one of these teams. But you have to continue to play at a competitive level.
Yeah, it's the consistency, because like you said, like there was times in the season last year where they were playing very, very well. But again, it matters if you do that when it matters, and that matters in March, and they didn't do that. And I think that comes from a big part of it being the lack of veterans on the team. And that's, again, another reason why I'm honestly optimistic. I like to think that a lot of these players have learned from that loss and from that collapse of last year. They're a young team that can right the ship. It's not a team full of 40-year-old guys who it's like, well, they are what they are. There's so much growth that can happen, which is why I think I'm optimistic. And I think the guys who are running the thing, John Tortorella, Danny Briere, Keith Jones, they just got their eyes on the prize. It's a great place to be it's a great environment to be, to learn, to be able to progress, to be able to take that next step and learn from those collapses like they have. And I'm excited. I think it's going to, I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be a good season. I really do. I don't see them taking a step back. I will be absolutely disappointed if they do. Devastated, even. And to Risto too, I wanted to throw out there, because you brought up, we crap on Risto on here. It is what it is. We do. We don't think Risto is not a serviceable player. We don't think he's not just one of the 6 guys you should have on your defense. We don't think that he should be. It's just the contract. It's the contract that we have.
Also the trade.
The contract. We were hacksters, man. We were big hacksters. Okay.
We were.
Gave him
my gosh. Oh man, I will never.
And a first round pick, and they also gave him a first round pick, which
the first round picks. Listen, they gave up Robert Hagg. That's a big deal to me. What's funny is that, like, you want to talk about I really believed Hagg was going to be like a serviceable, like, 6th D man.
He was going to be 6th or 7th D man at. He was going to be
6 or 7, but he'd be fine. And then it's like, well, we're fine. Travis Sanheim and Phil Myers, like the greatest combo we've ever had since like Darian Hatcher and Eric Desjardins, probably. And oh
Yeah.
my God, not only was I wrong about the entire Haig thing, but man, that Phil Myers thing will haunt me till the day that I die.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
by the way, I don't think did we talk about it on the podcast.
Hmm.
We talked about Ryan Ellis, and I don't know if we were recording or not, but you mentioned something like if this is the injury that he apparently has, and I don't know why people are actually expecting him to ever come back. Could you talk
So
about that
as
again for a second? Like, what exactly is that injury?
it's rumored that it was a psoas issue, and the psoas muscle is really, really, really deep, and it connects your lower spine through the hip, through your upper thigh. So it's
Yeah.
basically like deep in like your thigh kind of groin area.
Okay.
Um, and I think it was rumored again, rumored. No idea what's real, what's not, because the NHL, they don't say.
Hmm.
Um, but it's rumored that he tore that completely, which is absolutely, it's extremely painful.
Hmm.
Um, it causes muscle spasms that are crippling. Like, there's, he's probably going to have to deal with discomfort possibly for the rest of his life.
If this is the injury.
If that's the injury.
Okay.
I'm assuming he would have to get surgery, which is going to help it, but it's not going to fully recover. Like, the idea that he's ever going to play again, get that out of your head, in my opinion. Again,
Okay.
not taking any report, not an official thing, but
So you're obviously it's speculation, but you would say I'm guessing this has more to do with the fact because you followed UFC for as long as you have. I'm guessing you've seen stuff like this pop up in UFC.
funnily enough, no. So really quick, where I'm getting it from is from NashvilleHockeyNow.com,
Yeah.
written by Nick Kaiser. It's from August 4th, 2023. Back injury likely to force Ryan Ellis into retirement. Let me see exactly where it is. Flyers president of hockey operations Keith Jones told NHL.com on Wednesday that Ellis' career could be over due to a torn psoas muscle in his back. If that is indeed true, Ellis' only contribution to the Flyers will be 1 goal and 5 points he scored in the 4 games he played with the team, which was a great 4 games that he played.
He looked like the greatest thing. He was like, "Oh my God, we're going to be so good now."
It was fantastic. Watching his transitions were unbelievable. But so that's where the information came from. But no, funnily enough, I got it from another podcast called This Is Important. Some people will know what I'm talking about. It is from the creators of Workaholics. It is very immature, very funny, very stupid, very silly. And Adam Devine actually had an issue with his psoas muscle, which he detailed on the podcast frequently because he was actively dealing with it. And it went on for, I want to say, a good part of a year. He heard it doing a stunt for a spin-off for Pitch Perfect, for a TV show that he was doing, which was a spin-off of Pitch Perfect. And he apparently did something to it. And for the longest time, doctors they didn't even know that was the issue because it's so deep in like your groin area, lower back, all that area, that they didn't know for the longest time. Multiple surgeries, nothing fixed it. It wasn't until they went to a certain chiropractor who was able to essentially massage the area and get the muscle to release, and then he finally got the relief. But it took a really long time for that to happen, and there's no guarantee that it's going to happen either. So again, it's such a shame because Ryan Ellis was a great player, a great defenseman. He would have been a difference maker on this team.
A plus 116 in his career with
Phenomenal defenseman.
275 points in over 570 games played. I mean, at one point was considered the most underrated two-way defender in the NHL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about that on air, and I realized I was like, that'd be a great thing to kind of bring up because a lot of people like to make jokes about like, oh, Ryan Ellis is, his corpse is currently in, Danny Pierre's closet, and the truth of the matter is that this guy had an injury that is not only extraordinarily hard to come back from, but it is also evidently a very bizarre and not commonly seen injury. I'm guessing if it controls everything that you say it can controls, I'd also go as far as to guess that the psoas muscle is extremely strong and normally pretty durable.
I would think. I don't know. Like, I'm not a doctor.
Okay,
I'm just going off of
no
just
doctor
random shit.
here.
But yeah,
We are not
yeah,
saying. I'm just that is me being a regular person guessing. It'd be like me. It's like me
yeah.
guessing. Well, if the femur bone is the biggest bone in the body, then it's probably the strongest bone in the body. I don't know if that's
Right.
true. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's the fucking sternum. I don't know.
No, I think you are right, though. I do believe the femur is the strongest. I've heard, again, not a doctor. I could be entirely botching this
I'm
information,
actually gonna look
but
it up right now. Strongest bone
I've heard it's
in.
like as hard as cement.
It's the femur. Yep, it's the femur.
Okay, there you go. But yeah, I
Um,
mean, if you're curious about it, like just Google psoas muscle. There's a lot of like great diagrams, kind of
yeah, I was
showing
looking.
where it is. And
It's
again, it's
big.
all in the
It's
lower
huge.
back, down, kind of connecting to where where your femurs connect to the hip. It's like kind of wrapped around that, like a rubber band almost. And yeah, man.
There is one more thing we got to talk about before we go.
Okay,
Not about
what
the
is this?
Flyers, not about the AFC East, not even about
Oh,
football.
okay. Oh, all right.
We'll talk about the most fun team to talk about in the NHL.
What's that?
Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yes.
Uh, the Toronto Maple Leafs have named Austin Matthews the 26th captain in the franchise history. Coming on Wednesday. Which, for a lot of people, some of you might say, well, this was coming for a long time. John Tavares has not left the team. He is staying with the team. He is stepping down as the captain as he is now 34 years old and entering his 16th season in the NHL. And I think Austin Matthews is one of the greatest offensive playmakers in the last 10 years we've seen in the NHL.
Yeah.
And when I say I think, I don't really think that. We just kind of know that. But Cameron, I mean, it is a little strange that Tavares steps down and Matthews takes it, even if they might say, well, Matthews is ready. Well, what made it so that Tavares is no longer worthy of donning the C? What is that about? I don't understand.
It's weird. The only other time I can think of it happening was with the LA Kings when Dustin Brown lost it and they gave it to Anze Kopitar.
They did, yeah.
And Brown hung around, and there was even a couple years after that he had a little bit of a resurgence, a little bit of a comeback at one point. But yeah, it's odd. It's odd, dude. It's a little weird. But hey, I mean, I guess they were like 69 goals.
They're like, you know what? There's no time like the present. Listen, 26. Listen, the Toronto Maple Leafs. When you're named the captain of the Maple Leafs, when I think of the captain of the Maple Leafs, I think of a few different guys. I will certainly always think of John Tavares. I think of Matt Sundin.
Okay.
Definitely think of Matt Sundin because my God, was he an amazing Toronto Maple Leaf? I think of Wendell Clark. He was a great player in the '90s.
Dion Phaneuf. He's the first one that pops in my head.
Dion Phaneuf's another one. And guess what? Dion Phaneuf was not a bad captain. He wasn't even a bad player. Obviously, was not a goal scorer's nightmare like Matthews is. Daryl Sittler was a captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Daryl Sittler, very famously, was also chased out of town by Harold Ballard. You should listen to that episode of the Five Guys podcast. And they traded him to Philadelphia, and he was a pretty good flyer. Dave Keon, like probably the greatest captain in Maple Leafs history. Matthews comes in, his legacy as a Maple Leaf is a tricky one.
Yeah.
Great goal scorer, great player.
Mm-hmm.
At his pace, a Hall of Famer, no doubt. Cameron, the guy has seen the second round one time in his entire career.
Yeah, and he even played pretty well in the playoffs this year. But again, you scored 69 goals, and you didn't get past a limping Boston Bruins team. It's tough, dude. It's a tough look, and it's like, is he the guy to lead the Toronto Maple Leafs back to their greatness after 60 years of disappointment? I don't know. He scored 69 goals. That's
69.
crazy. That's insane.
69.
That is an insane level of goals. So he should be. And I'm not going to count him out because he's young. He absolutely could be that guy. But it's also, I feel like, not something that should be brought up. Should be brought up. You're scoring 40 goals at minimum every single season. I need more from you when it comes down to clutch time, dude.
I just want to make sure that we have it very clear. We are not saying at all that not John Tavares, that Austin Matthews does not deserve to be a captain of the team. I mean, let's be honest. He's the face of the franchise. It's not Johnny T. It's always been Austin Matthews.
And Tavares was going to retire most likely soon anyway. So it's like this was happening regardless. Mm-hmm. This was happening. Austin Matthews was going to be the captain at some point. It was happening.
In the playoffs, Austin Matthews has played 55 games, and as Cameron alluded to, he has played well throughout most of those playoffs, especially in not in 2022, 2023. He had 11 points in 11 games. He's played in 55 games. He has 48 points, 23 goals, 25 assists in that time period. He's even a +2. He has 5 power play goals. He has 6 game-winning goals. This year, in the series against the Bruins, in which he got hurt, and I will give him credit. He tried his damnedest to be out there.
He did.
And that is where as strictly a hockey player, I would say, good for Austin Matthews. Off the ice incidents aside, which it's hard to ignore because they're pretty bad. If you don't know, look it up. Not the greatest human being apparently off the ice. You hope he's still not the same person. But 4 points in 5 games against Boston this year. You need your captain to be your best player, which he's going to be, but I will also say you need your captain to be your bona fide leader when it comes to the postseason. And up until this point, Austin Matthews has not led the Toronto Maple Leafs to a memorable season. 69 goals is great. No one's going to take that from him. He had 107 points. I think he was like a +34 or something like that this season.
Yeah.
But none of that matters to me if you're not winning in the postseason. Ask anyone in Toronto how much they really care about 69 goals. What will last year be remembered for? 69 goals, another 7-game series loss against the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. Alex Ovechkin scored 50-plus goals. I can't even remember how many seasons.
It's got to be like 10 seasons he's done it.
He's that close to getting to Gretzky.
He's probably going to pass Gretzky this year. He's probably going to do it this year.
Yeah. One cup.
Actually, one. And guess what? For a long time,
Barry Trotz.
You would not find a bigger hater of Alex Ovechkin than my co-host right here, Cameron Klein.
Yep. Yeah, I'll admit it. Before Barry Trotz, the guy didn't back check. And it drive me crazy. And to me, it was the reason why I remember saying to my brother multiple times, they will never win a Stanley Cup because he does not play defensively. We all seen the memes. We've all seen the videos of the Xbox controller being disconnected as he just glides down into the defensive zone. He didn't back check. The reason why they won that cup is because Barry Trotz, a defensive-minded coach, said you need to get your ass back there with the defense and be ready to go. And to Alex Ovechkin's credit, he responded, and he did do that. And they won a Stanley Cup. It took them 3 years, but they won a Stanley Cup. And then out was Barry Trotz. In came Todd, whatever his name was, right back to old ways. Here we are again. Washington Capitals are exactly what they are. Great in the regular season, lose in the second round. Don't get past the second round, just like a certain team up in Canada who we're talking about right now.
Alex Ovechkin has 9 seasons of 50 goals or more, which is crazy.
Fantastic.
The year they won the Cup,
Go ahead.
year they won the Cup, he had 49 goals, which is still incredible. It's a great amount, but it's nowhere near, his best season as a pro.
And again, I credit that Stanley Cup victory to Barry Trotz, not to the captaincy of Alex Ovechkin, who not saying he shouldn't be a captain. I'm not saying that. Not at all. Don't get it twisted. I'm simply saying he was not the sole reason. He was not the thing that pushed them over the edge. It was Barry Trotz that did that because Barry Trotz told him to play his game differently than he always has. And then he did. And Austin Matthews, very similar. Scored 69 goals. That's great. But if you got to be the guy, and Alex Ovechkin, back to him, look at the teams that he was on too. They weren't bad teams.
No, as a matter of fact, the best season Alex Ovechkin ever had statistically was his 65-goal, 47-assist season in 2007-2008. The Capitals were the 3 seed in the East, and
President's
they lost
Trophy winners in 2010.
Yep, they lost in 7 games in his best season ever to the Philadelphia Flyers in the first round of the playoffs. In that season and in that series, Ovechkin played very well. 9 points in 7 games. Bested by some guy named Danny Briere who had 11 points in the 7 games. But you have to remember that there's so much more to winning a Stanley Cup, with a team as opposed to just being a great goal scorer. And Matthews, guess what? He's not known for being a particularly bad defender. He's a huge body. It's kind of impossible for him to be a bad defender.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. He was always going to be the captain, but I always thought it was going to come after Johnny T left. I'm a little confused as to why Tavares steps down now.
I said before about the Jets. The Jets are going to jet, and this just seems like another one of those. Well, the Maple Leafs are going to Maple Leaf move. It's the thing, like I mentioned, we knew it was going to happen. Did it have to happen right now? Did it have to happen right now? I don't know.
If like the whole point is like, we can't just run it back. We got to shake things up. It's like taking, it's honestly just not even making a real move. It's okay. You're running it back with the same core.
It's a very good way to put it.
The core four. And you're like, no, but this time, because now, look, we put the hat on someone else now. We put the silly hat on someone else's head. Now it's going to work out for us.
Yeah. We changed the logo and the jersey. We're good now. Jacksonville's like, look, we got gold, and the gold transitions to black on the helmet.
It's beautiful.
It's going to be 2017 all over again. We're going to the AFC Championship. Yeah, no, that's a very good way of putting it. That is a very good way of putting it. It kind of seems like a nothing move.
It literally feels like a nothing move. But before we run out of time, I just want to also say, for anyone that is, excited about, as a Maple Leaf fan, be excited. Like, please, like you should. And your team is good enough where, they're going to kick the crap out of the Flyers this season. I already know that. But, ultimately, I hope that maybe this one move is the move that is needed. And this will change everything for you guys. You're going to win a Stanley Cup now because Austin Matthews is the captain. But it just feels like, this is a cool move. It's a feel-good moment move that ultimately means nothing.
Yeah.
That it really does mean nothing.
Almost like more for PR than anything. And we, like you said, we could be wrong. We've been wrong plenty of times before. And if you are looking for some more information about this, like going throughout the NHL, you can always check out BroadStreetHockey.com. We got this stuff from the Thursday morning flyby. Kelly Hinkle does one every day. And it's not just Flyer stuff. It's just every random, hey, this happened in the NHL. That happened in the NHL. This happened over here. That happened over here. Here's this list. It's a nice little way of keeping up to date, especially during these dog days of August where not a lot is going on. So if you want to find a little hub with all the cool stuff, Kelly's got you covered.
By the way, if you interact with Kelly on Twitter, always be sure to remind her that she's wonderful. I don't think, she reminds herself enough of that. Kelly, you're wonderful. We love you on the Fly Guys podcast, and we are so happy that you are, the commander of this ship. For Cameron Klein, my name is Justin Goodhart. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Fly Guys Podcast, on Instagram at Fly Guys Podcast. He's at Cameron Klein 15. I'm at Goodhart Justin. The Fly Guys Podcast is presented by Bet Online. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, let's go Flyers.